Hello there. Do you think life is just a string of boring chores, unbearable routines, and small humiliations? Try, just for one day, to become someone who does not even own their own body or their own thoughts. Forget about the right to rest, to choose, or to be respected. Step into a reality where every breath is not about hope, but about survival. But before you get comfortable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I'm always curious to see where everyone's tuning in from. All right, make yourself comfortable. We're about to begin. You open your eyes before the sun has even considered rising. Not that you needed the sun to rouse you, the cold is always quicker. The air inside your quarters is thick and wet, the kind of wetness that seeps into your bones and stays there long after the day has begun. There is no such thing as comfort here, only varying degrees of misery, and your sleep, if it could even be called that, is nothing but short bursts of uneasy, dreamless darkness. Even in your briefest moments of rest, there is a weight in your stomach, a gnawing hunger that makes your ribs feel sharper each day, and a heaviness in your chest that comes from something deeper than simple exhaustion. You lie on your back for a moment, staring up at the ceiling. The roof, a patchwork of rotten wooden planks and palm leaves, does a better job at keeping the sun out than the rain. When the storms come, the water makes its way in, drip by patient drip, until the earth beneath you is a thick, cold mud. On dry nights, the air gets so stale, you swear you can taste the filth you have breathed in 1,000 times before. Your mattress is a mat woven from reeds and whatever scraps could be salvaged from the trash. It has the softness of gravel and the warmth of the grave. Somewhere in the darkness around you, others are stirring too. You hear the dry, hacking cough of old Jeremiah, who sleeps in the corner, and the low, anxious mutterings of the younger ones, those who still hope for mercy. You stopped hoping a long time ago. The smell of unwashed bodies, smoke from the dying fire, and the sickly sweetness of rot combine into something foul and permanent. It is as familiar as your own hands, and just as inescapable. A rat scurries over your feet. You do not bother to shoo it away. The rats own this place as much as you do, maybe more. At least they are free to come and go as they please. You, on the other hand, have nowhere to go but out that door, and you know what waits for you beyond it. It is not an opportunity. It is not freedom. It is only more work, more pain, more reminders that your body is not your own. You roll over and push yourself up, feeling every ache and bruise as you move. Your body is a map of old injuries and new discomforts. Your knees pop. Your back screams. You are not old, not by any sensible reckoning, but this life ages you quickly. Every year of bondage adds 10 to your bones. You reach for your clothing, if it can be called that. A shirt, little more than a rag with sleeves, and a pair of trousers so thin they threaten to split every time you bend your knees. Both are stained with dirt, grease, and memories you would rather not name. They smell like yesterday and every day before it, because laundry is a privilege, reserved for those whose work is less filthy or less endless. At least your feet are bare. You would hate to ruin a perfectly good pair of shoes. You tie a strip of old cloth around your waist to keep your pants from falling down. The knot is stiff with grime. Sometimes, when you see your reflection in a puddle, you hardly recognize yourself. Your face is gaunt, your eyes sunken, your hair unkempt and streaked with dust. The person you once were is as distant as a star and just as impossible to reach. As you make your way toward the door, you pause for a moment to listen. The sounds of the morning are unmistakable. The low rumble of wagons being pulled along the road, the barking of dogs, the sharp, angry voices of overseers and masters waking the world with commands. There is a rhythm to it, a symphony of authority and obedience, pain and acquiescence. It is music you have learned by heart, though you wish you could forget every note. You take a deep breath, and the cold air makes your chest ache. Outside, the world is still dark, but already alive with threats. You know that by the time the first light breaks over the fields, your hands will be raw, your knees sore, your mind frayed by the monotony and humiliation that define your days. There is no choice but to step forward. The day will begin whether you are ready or not. So you open the door, and the day claims you, body, soul, and whatever hope you manage to smuggle through the night. There is no room here for hope, really. Just the grinding certainty of one more day, followed by another and another, stretching out in a line so long you can no longer see the end. You step out of the hut, but even as you leave it behind, it clings to you, the smell, the damp, the memory of the night just past. The quarters where you live are hardly worthy of the word home. Shelter, the white folks might say, as if to imply some act of charity. They would not last a night inside these walls, but they seem to imagine the place is good enough for you, good enough for a creature expected to endure and obey and never complain. The hut is nothing but a lean-to, cobbled together from whatever was cheapest and most available. Broken planks with nails still clinging to them, thick mud, palm fronds that do not keep out the wind. The roof leaks every time the rain comes, and the floor is the same dirt as outside, sometimes drier, but often not. When it rains, you learn a whole new vocabulary of misery: the muddy puddles, the biting cold, the damp that never leaves your bones, and the streams of water trickling in through gaps in the wall. Sometimes, when you wake, you find yourself lying in a pool of water, as if the earth itself were trying to reclaim you. Privacy does not exist here. The quarters are filled with bodies, pressed together for warmth and out of necessity. Sometimes you wonder if the overseer counts you by head or by stench. The air is heavy and close, thick with the sourness of sweat, the tang of wood smoke, the sweet rot of mildew and decay. You learn to recognize the different smells: sickness, hunger, old blood, fear. Every odor tells a story, and none of the stories end well. The furniture, if you could call it that, is whatever you can scrounge or make: an overturned crate for a table, a log for a seat, a box of straw for a pillow. The luckiest among you might have a blanket, though calling it a blanket is generous. Usually, it is an old burlap sack, more whole than fabric, with the faded imprint of some forgotten company's name on the side. When you wrap yourself in it at night, you can feel every breeze, every chill, as if the cloth is little more than a suggestion. You remember when you first arrived, how you thought you might never get used to the darkness, the dampness, the sound of rats skittering over your body as you slept. Now you barely notice the rats. They are a part of life, sometimes a competitor for scraps, sometimes a warning of worse things to come. You have seen them gnaw at the heels of children, drag off morsels of food, and once take a piece of someone's ear as he slept. There are days you envy them, their boldness, their freedom, their indifference. The walls, such as they are patched with rags, sometimes newspapers, sometimes bits of discarded cloth. You read, or try to read, the stories printed there when you cannot sleep. Advertisements for miracle tonics, tales of faraway cities, reports of a world that feels impossibly distant. It is a cruel kind of comfort, a reminder that somewhere else, people are living lives you cannot even imagine, in houses where the floors are not mud and the ceilings do not leak. Every inch of your living space is shared: space to sleep, space to eat, space to breathe. The young children cry at night, their bellies swollen and empty. The old people groan and cough, their bodies broken by labor. There is never enough room, never enough warmth, never enough quiet. You long for silence, but even silence is denied you. The nights are filled with whispers, with prayers muttered into the dark, with the rustle of bodies shifting and trying to find comfort where none can be found. The biting insects are always with you. Mosquitoes breed in the standing water just outside the door, and at night they find their way inside to feast. You slap at them in your sleep, but you always wake up with new bites, new itches, new welts. Some of the children grow sick with fever, some never recover. There are no doctors here, no medicine beyond what you can conjure from roots and leaves, passed down from those who remember Africa, or from the old women who know which weeds can ease pain and which ones can end it. In the colder months, the wind blows through every crack. You huddle close to your neighbors, sharing whatever heat you can. There is no fire except for the smallest of embers, barely enough to warm your hands. The smoke from the fire fills the room, making your eyes burn and your throat ache. Still, you are grateful for it. Anything is better than the cold. And then there are the pests, the bed bugs, the lice, the fleas. They make their home in your clothes, your blankets, your very skin. Scratching is as much a part of your daily ritual as eating, though there is little enough of either. No matter how often you wash yourself in the stream, no matter how many times you scrub with sand, you can never be truly clean. The filth is a second skin. If you look at the place with the eyes of a stranger, you might be tempted to laugh at the absurdity of calling it a home. But you know better. Home is not a place. Home is a word you have forgotten the taste of, like freedom, like rest, like hope. Your shelter is just another part of the machine, a cog designed to keep you alive, just enough to work, just enough to suffer, just enough to remember what you have lost. And as the sun finally creeps up over the horizon, you step outside, ready to trade the darkness of your shelter for the darkness of another day. Your clothes wait for you exactly where you left them the night before, on the rough plank by your sleeping mat, crumpled, dirty, holding on to the smell of sweat and labor like a jealous secret. Each morning you hope, irrationally, that they will have changed overnight, that the holes will have closed up, the fabric thickened, the color returned. They never do. The threads get looser, the holes wider, and the stains darker, as if each day's work tattoos itself a little deeper into the fibers. You do not own these clothes. Ownership is a concept reserved for other people, people who get called Sir and Mrs., and who never touch the ground barefoot. These rags are as much the property of your master as the ground you walk on, the air you breathe, and the work you perform. He gives you clothes as a necessity, not a courtesy, and certainly not out of kindness. The point is not your comfort, but the appearance of decency, so that when you are sent out in public, the white folk can convince themselves they have provided you with enough. Your shirt began its life as something else, maybe a cast off from the master's own children, maybe a faded remnant from a shipment bought cheap. There is a rip under the arm that you keep meaning to mend, but the cloth is so thin you can see your own skin through it. It barely keeps the sun off your back, and when it rains, it clings to your body like a cold accusation. The cuffs are frayed, the collar stained beyond all hope. In the winter, it offers about as much protection as a cobweb. The trousers are not much better. They hang too loose around your waist, cinched up with a belt fashioned from a length of rope. Some days, when you work especially hard, they threaten to slide down your hips altogether. The fabric is rough, heavy with old dirt, worn thin at the knees, and patched with scraps of material that do not match and never last. You remember the feeling of new trousers once, a memory so distant it may as well belong to someone else. These trousers remember nothing but pain. And then there is the question of shoes, a question you already know the answer to. Shoes are for someone else. You walk barefoot, your feet tough as leather, the soles cracked and calloused from years of rough ground. You can recognize another slave by his walk, the careful, practiced step of someone who knows every pebble, every thorn, every jagged edge of the road. In the summer, the dust cakes your feet. In the winter, the mud steals your warmth and leaves you shivering. When you cut yourself, you wrap your foot in a strip torn from your shirt because there is nothing else to use. Sometimes you see white children running in their shoes, laughing, their feet dry and clean. You wonder what it would be like to wear shoes every day, to never know the bite of gravel, the sting of frost, or the burn of hot sand. You imagine the soft padding, the even stride, the simple pleasure of not thinking about pain with every step. But for you, shoes are a dream, a symbol of a life lived by someone else, somewhere else. Laundry is another word for privilege. Your shirt and trousers have seen the river only a handful of times since you first received them. Each time you wash them, they lose a little more strength, a little more shape, and you know that sooner or later the fabric will give up entirely. But until then, you live with the dirt. The dirt is honest, at least. It tells the truth about who you are, what you do, and where you belong. You have seen some try to patch their clothes with string, old sacks, even leaves. It never lasts. The labor grinds away at everything, at cloth, at flesh, at hope. The overseer does not care what you wear, only that you keep moving, keep cleaning, keep obeying. If your shirt falls off your back, you are given a new one, even thinner and meaner than the last, and you start the process over again. Sometimes, on rare and strange mornings, you catch sight of yourself in the reflection of a puddle, and for a moment, you are startled. You look like a scarecrow, you think, or a shadow pretending to be a man. The person you see is both familiar and foreign, someone who wears their suffering on the outside, where everyone can see. You cannot remember the last time you felt warm and dry at the same time. When it rains, your clothes soak up every drop. The cold sets in and lingers long after the sun comes out again. When it is hot, the sweat collects under your shirt, pooling and mixing with dust until your skin itches so badly you want to claw it off. There is no season that brings relief. The clothes you wear are always wrong, too thin, too rough, too few, too much a reminder that comfort is not for you. And yet, every morning, you pull them on. You tie the rope around your waist, roll up the sleeves, and step out into the world. There is no dignity in it, but there is necessity. You wear your rags the way a soldier wears his scars, not with pride, but because they are proof you have survived another day. For now, every morning, once you have pulled your ragged clothes into place, you face the journey from your shelter to the street, a journey so short it might seem trivial to those who have never taken it, but for you, it is the first gauntlet of the day. There is no path, not really, only a strip of trampled earth winding through the jumble of slave quarters, across patches of hard packed dirt and slick, sucking mud, and out past the vegetable garden you rarely taste. The ground has memorized your steps as you have memorized every stone and rut beneath your feet. You step out barefoot. Of course you do. The ground greets you with 1,000 small insults. Sharp pebbles, shards of broken pottery, the bones of chickens and squirrels, even the odd nail that fell from a crate, or the teeth of a comb discarded in anger. You know each one. Sometimes you imagine the land itself is trying to remind you who owns whom. You walk carefully, feeling every jolt in your bones. Some mornings your feet are so sore from the previous day that you want to turn around and crawl back under your reed mat, but you do not. There is no choice. Hesitation is a privilege you cannot afford. On rainy days, the path becomes a river of mud. The red earth swallows your toes and splashes up your ankles, staining your trousers with streaks that will never come out. You slide, you stumble, you catch yourself with hands already scabbed and bruised from other falls. Your skin is tough, but the mud is tougher. Sometimes you lose your balance and land hard, and you feel the watching eyes of others, some sympathetic, some just glad it was not them. The morning air is heavy, close, full of the sound of insects waking up, dogs barking in the distance, and the distant rattle of chains as someone somewhere unlocks a door that was only pretending to be closed. You hear the low murmur of voices from the other quarters, sleepy, nervous, afraid to be late. The overseer's whistle will come soon enough, sharp as a slap, and you know that if you are not already on your way, there will be trouble. Trouble, of course, always finds you. It is the most reliable companion you have. There is a ritual to this walk. First, you glance down at your own feet, checking for new wounds, old scabs, swollen toes. Then you check the sky, not for weather, but for omens. What kind of day will this be? You never believe in luck, not anymore, but habits are hard to break. You move quickly, shoulders hunched, eyes low. You do not want to be noticed. Being noticed is dangerous. Being late is dangerous. Being too eager is also dangerous. You have learned to move with just the right amount of speed, not rushing, not dawdling, invisible if possible. On the way, you pass others. Some nod to you in silent greeting, their eyes hollow and rimmed with red. You might share a whispered word about the weather or the state of someone's health, but mostly you just keep moving. There is no time for talk. There is no energy for it. There is only the path, the street, and the day that waits to devour you. You pass the kitchen house, and sometimes the smell of food wafts out, a smell that makes your stomach contract, a reminder of what you will not have. A slave girl stands by the doorway, scrubbing a pot bigger than her head, her arms already slick with grease. She does not look up. She knows the rules, too. And then there are the overseers. They stand in the shadows, leaning against fence posts, chewing tobacco and spitting into the dust. They watch every movement. Their eyes are sharp, but their interest is dull. You are just another part of the landscape, like the weeds, the mud, the rising sun. If you are unlucky, one will call you over just to remind you who you are. A slap, a shove, a word meant to cut deeper than a whip. You swallow the insult and keep moving. Every minute of your day is an exercise in not being noticed, and every moment you succeed feels like a small, guilty victory. As you approach the road, the world begins to change. The quarters fade away, and the houses grow larger, the fences wider, the air a little less thick with misery. But not for you. For you, the street is just another stage, another place to work, another set of eyes that judge and dismiss you in equal measure. The street is alive already, even in this early hour. Wagons creak past, driven by white men in broad hats who never look down. Horses clatter, snorting in the morning air, their hooves throwing up clumps of mud and manure. The shops along the street are just beginning to open, their signs swinging in the wind, bright promises painted in letters you have learned to read only because you have been made to clean them. You keep your head down as you walk. You know better than to meet anyone's gaze. Even the smallest glance can be taken as a challenge or an invitation to violence. If you are lucky, you are invisible. If you are unlucky, someone will remind you of your place with a sneer, a curse, a kick to the backside. There is no dignity in this path, only endurance. By the time you reach your corner, your feet are already caked with mud, your trousers streaked, your hands gritty and raw. The day has barely begun, and already you are tired. You glance back, just once, at the row of slave quarters, the tiny doorways, the slanting roofs, the patchwork walls. Home, some would call it. For you, it is just the starting point, a place to leave behind as you step into the endless grayness of work, pain, and survival. You set down your box, your brush, your scraps of rag. The street is waiting, the day is waiting, and you too must wait for a customer, for a kind word, for a chance that will never come, for the evening that is always too far away. The path to the street is short, but it is the longest road you know. It is the road you walk every day, and every day it takes something from you, something you will never get back. The street is barely awake when you take your place at your usual spot. The sun has only just begun to threaten the horizon, a dull, watery light that makes the mud shine and the broken bottles glitter like teeth. You arrange your box, your brush, and your rags with the kind of care you reserve for small, dangerous rituals. Everything must be ready, or as ready as you can make it. Everything in its place, because when the clients begin to arrive, there is never time to fix, only time to endure. The first customers come before the day truly begins, before the shops open their doors and the proper folks fill the street with noise and color. These early clients are always in a hurry, always sharp and brittle, full of the kind of hunger that comes from a life spent having their shoes shined for them. They step out of their houses with purpose, tall men with faces shaved smooth, hats pressed, collars starched, boots they already dirtied by the short walk from their porches. Sometimes they arrive alone, sometimes with their children trailing behind, learning by example how to look right through you. You keep your eyes lowered as they approach. To look a man in the eye is to invite trouble. You have learned this the hard way. The rules are unwritten, but they are absolute. Keep your gaze low, your words soft, your hands quick and sure. Never presume to greet a client unless spoken to, and even then, keep your answers short. If they ask your name, you give it. If they do not, you remain a nameless fixture, a pair of hands and a bowed head. The first man stops in front of you, his boots caked with mud from the river path. He does not greet you. He simply extends one leg, toe pointed like an accusation. You drop to your knees, the stones pressing into your flesh, and get to work. The leather is cracked and stiff, the color faded, but you do your best. Your brush moves in steady circles, your rag works the polish into every groove. The man shifts his weight, impatient. You can feel the heat of his stare on your bent neck. Faster, he says, and you obey. You always obey. You scrub harder, knowing that if you scuff the leather or leave a spot untouched, there will be words, or worse. You finish the first boot and move to the second, your fingers aching already. The morning is still cool, but sweat beads on your brow. You do not dare wipe it away. When you are finished, the man does not look down. He drops a coin, not into your hand, but onto the box, a thin silver slap. You know better than to reach for it. The overseer will collect it later. Sometimes the coin misses and lands in the mud. Sometimes you are allowed to fish it out, but you must always hand it over. The value of your labor is measured not in what you keep, but in what you give away. Another client steps forward. This one is younger, barely a man, with the soft, smug face of someone who has never gone hungry a day in his life. He laughs with his friends as you polish his boots, making jokes at your expense, daring you to react. You do not. You have learned that silence is armor. Words are weapons, but not for you. For you, words are traps, snares to catch your tongue and drag you down. So you keep quiet and let their laughter wash over you. There are women too, though less often in these early hours. Sometimes the lady of the house stops by on her way to the market, her shoes small and dainty, stitched with bright thread. She does not speak to you, not really. She talks to her friends, to her children, to herself, as if you are invisible. She might complain about the price of flour, or the heat, or the difficulty of finding good help. You kneel in the dust and polish her shoes until they shine, and she never once glances your way. Some mornings, a child comes alone, sent by a parent too busy or too lazy to walk. The children are bold in ways their elders are not. They stare at you openly, sometimes asking questions. Are you a slave? Do you have a family? Do you ever wish you were white? You answer carefully, if at all. Children remember things, and sometimes they repeat what you say to people with the power to hurt you. Still, there are moments, brief and dangerous, when a child will offer you a crust of bread, or a smile, or a word of kindness. You take these small gifts and hide them in your heart, knowing they will have to last you a long, long time. The early clients are always in a hurry, always restless. Some tap their feet, some clear their throats, some complain about your speed, your skill, your very existence. You work as quickly as you can, your hands moving in a rhythm that is half muscle, half memory. Every shoe is different, but every client is the same. Impatient, entitled, blind to the labor that makes their lives possible. When the first rush is over, your knees are sore, your back is tight, and your fingers are stiff. Your hands are stained with polish, your nails black with grime. You do not complain. You do not even think of complaining. You simply wait for the next customer, and the next, and the next. Each one a reminder that your day has only just begun. Your hands are your first tools, and they are the ones that take the most damage. You notice this more and more with every passing week, the calluses growing thicker, the skin around your nails cracked and blackened, the knuckles raw and red. Some mornings your fingers are so stiff you have to flex them for several minutes just to make a fist. But there is no time to linger. You have a job to do, and the tools are waiting, such as they are. Your brush is a worn little thing. Once, long ago, it must have been something fine. Real bristles set into a polished wooden handle meant for the shoes of some respectable gentleman. Now the handle is dull and splintered, and the bristles splay out at wild angles, half of them missing entirely. You have tied a rag around the handle to keep from getting too many splinters, but it does not help much. Every few days, a new bristle falls out, and you wonder how many are left before it is only a stick in your hand. The rag is your next tool. You are supposed to use a clean one for each pair of shoes, but there are never enough rags. Instead, you use what you have: an old shirt sleeve torn into strips, a bit of curtain left behind by someone who moved away, sometimes even a piece of sackcloth so rough it might as well be sandpaper. You wash the rags when you can, in the dirty water that gathers behind the stable, but nothing ever comes truly clean. The stains from polish and grease are so deep they feel permanent, a part of the fabric now. You twist and fold the rag, searching for a clean edge, knowing that every new customer deserves the illusion of care. Then there is the polish, or whatever passes for it. Real shoe polish is rare and precious. A small tin, stamped with the name of a faraway city, kept under lock and key by the master or the overseer. Most days you make do with substitutes: bacon grease, lard, ash from the fire, a bit of soot mixed with water. You have become an expert at coaxing shine from nothing. You know exactly how much spit to mix in, how to buff the surface just so, how to use your own sweat as a final touch. The customers do not care, as long as the boots look good when you are finished. If they notice the smell, they do not say so. Your box is both a seat and a tool chest. It was once sturdy, but now the corners are worn, and the lid creaks when you open it. Inside, you keep whatever you can scavenge: a nail for prying out stones, a bit of wire for scraping mud from the soles, a small knife so dull it might as well be a spoon. Sometimes, when you are lucky, you find a bit of beeswax or a piece of chalk for whitening the edges. These things are treasures, traded among the others who work the streets, borrowed and returned and borrowed again. No one steals from a fellow slave, not if they want to be trusted, not if they want to last. You think sometimes about how different your tools are from those used by the masters. Their brushes are new and strong, their rags soft and white, their tins of polish lined up like soldiers on a shelf. You have seen their shoe shine kits, displayed proudly, all gleaming wood and brass. You doubt any of them have ever touched real mud, real filth, real desperation. Their tools exist to keep up appearances. Yours exist to survive. Your fingers, in the end, do most of the work. You use them to spread the polish, to rub at stubborn stains, to press into the cracks and seams where the brush cannot reach. Sometimes, after a long day, you look at your hands and hardly recognize them. They are not the hands of a child. They are not the hands of a free man. They are tools, blunt and battered, and you wonder if they will ever heal. Cleaning supplies are never in good supply. If the overseer brings you something new, a half empty bottle of oil, a square of flannel, a broken brush, you treat it like gold. You hide it away, careful not to let anyone see, because you know it could be taken at any moment, either by a customer who thinks it funny to steal from a slave, or by another worker desperate enough to risk your anger. The sun bakes your tools in the summer until the wood swells and the bristles crack. In the winter, the mud cakes onto everything, turning brushes into clubs, rags into boards. You do your best to keep them clean, to keep them in one piece, but time and use are stronger than any effort you can muster. You have learned to adapt, to turn a sliver of wood into a scraper, a length of string into a shoelace, a chipped bowl into a cup for water. The master never asks how you manage. He does not care if you have what you need, only that the shoes are polished by the time he needs them. If you ask for new supplies, you are told to be grateful for what you have. If you complain, you are reminded that there are plenty of others who would be glad to take your place. So you make do. You always make do. And when the day is done, when your tools are put away and your hands are washed as clean as they will get, you feel a strange sort of pride. Not pride in the work or the tools or the shoes you have shined, but pride in survival. Every brush, every rag, every bit of polish is a reminder. You have endured another day. Your tools are battered, but they are yours, in the only way anything can ever be yours in this place. Tomorrow, you will take them up again, and the work will begin anew. The Master is the sun around which all things orbit. You may never look him straight in the eye. No one expects you to, but his presence bends your entire world, shaping your days and dreams as if he were gravity itself. Every order, every silence, every glance and gesture is a signal, and you have learned to read these signals as surely as you have learned to read the weather. The Master is always there, even when he is nowhere to be seen. He comes out sometimes in the mornings, surveying his property with an air of casual boredom. You know what that means, not only the land and the house, but the people, the bodies that belong to him, as surely as the chairs on his porch or the dogs at his heels. You are not even at the top of his list. You are an afterthought, a background detail, a function of his wealth, no different in his mind from a hammer or a rake or the polish you use to shine his boots. When you work, you feel his gaze, even if he is not present. The knowledge of him hangs in the air like humidity. The overseer is his extension, his will made flesh. The overseer's shouts, his threats, his long, thin whip, they all carry the master's authority. There is no way to escape it. You polish shoes with an intensity born not from pride or ambition, but from a nervous hope that your work might be enough to avoid notice. Not too good, lest the master decide you can work even harder. Not too poor, lest you be punished for laziness or disrespect. You exist in the narrow, treacherous middle. On rare occasions, the master addresses you directly. His words are clipped and dismissive, as if he is inconvenienced even by the effort of speaking. Faster, he might say, or That spot there, pointing with the tip of his cane. His voice is always cool, never raised. Violence, when it comes, is always delegated, always impersonal. You have seen him laugh at a story told by another white man about some lazy slave, and you have seen him grow cold and silent at the smallest sign of impudence. Your life is a test with no answer key, and the grading is both arbitrary and absolute. The master decides how much work is enough. If he thinks the shine on his boots is dull, he decides you need more practice. If he hears from a neighbor that his servants look shabby, he punishes you for the insult. He is the judge, the jury, the law. He determines when you eat, what you wear, how late you work, and what you may keep. Usually nothing at all. The coins you earn cleaning shoes never touch your palm. They go straight to him, counted and pocketed as if he had worked for them himself. There is a myth told by those who have never known real suffering that some masters are kind. The kind master, they say, gives his slaves better food, allows them to rest, refrains from cruelty. You do not believe in kind masters, not anymore. Kindness, when it comes, is just a tactic, another way to keep you compliant, another tool for controlling hope. You have learned not to trust a gentle word, or a smile, or a rare moment of leniency. You know that any kindness can be revoked in a heartbeat, replaced by indifference or rage. Sometimes, when the master inspects your work, he brings guests, neighbors, visiting relatives, business partners. He gestures at you as if you were a curiosity, something to be admired or pitied or judged. You hear them discussing your usefulness, your demeanor, your quality, as if you are livestock. One day, you are praised for your skill. The next, you are scolded for your lack of spirit. The ground beneath you is never steady. The master's opinion is a shifting sea, and you must learn to swim or drown. When the master is in a good mood, you might go a whole day without a harsh word. The overseer's blows are lighter, the food less spoiled, the work not quite so endless. But moods change, and you know that peace is always temporary. An argument at breakfast, a letter with bad news, a lost wager at the card table, any of these can make your day and your back much harder. You are not a person, you are a pressure valve, a way for someone else to vent their frustration and keep their hands clean. You hear stories about rebellion, about running away, about freedom. You wonder sometimes if the master ever fears these stories. Does he lie awake at night, wondering if his property might one day slip through his fingers? You do not think so. The system is too old, too vast, too sure of itself. Fear, it seems, is for the powerless. The master does not need to fear. That is your job. But for all his power, the master is never truly close. He floats above you, unreachable and untouchable, his comfort secured by your discomfort, his leisure carved from your exhaustion. If you vanish tomorrow, he would replace you without a thought. If you died, he would charge the cost of your rags against your value and move on. And so, as you bend over another pair of shoes, feeling the master's eyes, or the idea of them on your neck. You remind yourself of the only lesson that matters. There is no winning here, only surviving. The master decides what that looks like, and you do whatever it takes to disappear into the background, to become invisible, to work just hard enough and not a stroke more. Your reward is another day, and another, each one ruled by a man whose shadow is larger than your life. There are places in this world where people talk about the scent of morning, the freshness of dew, the sweetness of flowers, the promise of a new day. For you, the air in the morning is thick with something else entirely. You wake, breathe in, and taste the truth of your life in every exhale: filth, sweat, rot, and the layered odors of a city that never washes itself clean. No perfume can cover what you smell, no breeze can blow it away. You kneel on the street, and already your nostrils are filled with the stink of yesterday's work. There is the sour tang of polish. What passes for polish anyway? Lard and ashes, and old grease that goes rancid in the sun. Your rags reek of all the feet they have touched, the endless parade of boots and shoes and slippers, each pair carrying its own private history of mud and misery. Sometimes, when you lift a rag to your nose, you think you can smell the lives of everyone who has ever walked through this city: rich men, poor men, drunks, peddlers, and children with feet too small for their shoes. There is the smell of leather, too, not the sharp, clean scent of new boots, but the tired, flabby odor of hide that has walked too many miles, been soaked in too much rain, and sweated through too many days. The shoes you clean are always tired, like you. Their owners expect miracles, a transformation from ragged to respectable, but the leather holds on to the memory of every step. You can scrub, and still the stink lingers, a mixture of foot, earth, and something darker you cannot name. Then there is the earth itself. The street is never clean. In the morning, the mud is cool and sticky, clinging to your knees, sucking at your toes. In the heat of the day, it bakes into a hard crust, the kind that cracks your skin and rubs your flesh raw. When it rains, everything dissolves into muck, a stew of old horse droppings, chicken feathers, spilled ale, and ash from last night's fires. You can trace the history of the neighborhood by what is stuck to your heels: a piece of broken jug, a scrap of blue cloth, a splinter of bone, and always there are the human smells: the sweat of a dozen bodies packed into a hut at night, the breath of people who eat too little and work too much, the sick, sweet stench of fever that clings to the young and the old. There is no running water here, no place to bathe except the shallow ditch behind the stables, and that is only good for washing away the top layer. The dirt beneath your fingernails is older than some of the children you work beside. The stains on your shirt are never coming out. When you clean shoes, your face is never far from the ground. You inhale the dust kicked up by wagons and horses, the oily fumes from lamps and lanterns, the sharp, nose-twitching tang of the tanneries down the road. Some days the wind shifts and brings with it the reek of the slaughterhouse, a heavy, coppery perfume that makes your stomach churn. Other days, it is just the ever present, low tide of decay, rotten vegetables, spoiled meat, and the slow, relentless compost of everything that has died and been forgotten. You have become an expert in recognizing dirt. There is the red clay that sticks to your feet and stains your skin. There is the yellow sand that grinds into every crack, the black oil from carriage wheels, the gray, greasy soot that settles on everything by nightfall. You know which stains will come out with a little spit and elbow grease, and which ones will outlive you. There are days when your hands seem permanently gray, the creases in your knuckles filled with grime no amount of scrubbing will remove. Your own smell follows you everywhere. At first, you noticed it all the time, the rankness of your own body after a day in the sun, the acrid tang of sweat, the sourness of fear. But over time, you grew used to it, the way you grow used to pain or hunger. The only time you really notice it now is when you are near someone who is clean, a rare enough event, but when it happens, the contrast is almost blinding. You remember, in those moments, what it means to feel shame. The shoes themselves are a map of the city's dirt. Some are caked with mud up to the ankle, others crusted with salt from the winter roads. You see blood on some, just a drop, just enough to make you wonder. Others are sticky with sugar or syrup, tracked from the market stalls, or dusted with flour from the bakery. You learn a lot about people by the state of their shoes. Who runs, who walks, who dances, who stumbles. At the end of the day, you try to clean yourself. You scrape your hands with a sliver of wood, rub your arms with sand, dunk your head in the ditch water, hoping to wash away the top layer of the world. But the smells linger. The dirt lingers. It settles into the cracks of your skin, into the roots of your hair, into the seams of your soul. It is always there, waiting for you in the morning, a reminder that nothing ever truly comes clean. And so you sleep with the dirt, wake with the dirt, breathe it in and out with every sigh. You wonder sometimes if you will ever know what it is to be clean, what it is to breathe air that does not carry the scent of all your days. But this is your world now, smells and dirt, filth and sweat, the aroma of survival in a place that offers nothing else. You clean shoes for a living, but the word clean has never felt so slippery, so impossible, so full of compromise. The work is both simple and endless, a dance with no music, a rhythm set by someone else's clock and someone else's whims. Every day, you polish shoes until your hands ache and your back nuts into a question mark. Yet every evening, you look down and see the same stains beneath your fingernails, the same grime clinging to your wrists, the same tired evidence that labor does not equal reward. You begin each job with a forced humility. The client extends his foot, not bothering to greet you or acknowledge you as anything but a part of the scenery. Sometimes he balances on the edge of the box, impatient, toe tapping, heel drumming. He may be polite, but politeness is not for your benefit. It is just another way of reminding you where you stand. Sometimes he is cruel, looking down on your bent back with the satisfaction of a man who knows you will never look him in the eye. Most days, he is simply indifferent. You kneel, as always, and examine the shoe. Each pair tells its own story, a story of careless walks through muddy alleys, drunken trips home, hurried dashes across the square. You learn to read these stories, to see which scratches can be buffed away and which are carved too deep. You start with your brush, coaxing out the chunks of dried earth, the pebbles wedged in the treads, the strands of hay, and the specks of filth that have collected over hours or days. The sound is a soft rasp, the brush biting the leather in quick, practiced strokes. Sometimes you find a nail or a bit of glass caught in the sole. You pry it out with your fingers or the edge of your knife, careful not to damage the shoe and more careful not to hurt yourself. Next comes the rag, that eternal companion. You dip it in water if you have it, spit on it if you do not, and start rubbing. The polish, if you have any, is rubbed in circles, never back and forth, always in circles as you were taught. The heat of your hand, the friction of the cloth, the rhythm you fall into after hours of repetition, all of these work together to coax a little shine from shoes that have forgotten what it is to be new. You feel the roughness of the leather under your palm, the stickiness of old polish, the resistance of a stubborn stain. The work is physical, relentless. After the first hour, your fingers begin to cramp. After the second, your knees ache and a dull throb starts in your lower back. By midday, sweat soaks your shirt, running down your face, stinging your eyes. You learn not to wipe it away. A clean shoe is worth more than a clean brow, at least to those who pay for such things. The dust rises in clouds, settling on your arms and neck, mixing with the polish until your skin glistens. Half oil, half dirt, you learn the art of patience. Some clients demand speed, others demand perfection. If you go too quickly, you are scolded for carelessness. If you take too long, you are accused of laziness. There is a narrow space in between, just fast enough, just careful enough, that allows you to finish the job and move to the next without drawing attention. You live your whole life in that narrow space, balancing on the edge of someone else's expectations. And then there are the shoes that refuse to shine. The leather is cracked, the soles are worn, the seams are splitting. No matter how hard you work, they remain dull, battered, tired. Their owners look at you as if you have failed them, as if you have personally offended their sense of order. You apologize, but the apology is hollow, an empty offering to a God who does not care. You move to the next customer, hoping for something easier. Sometimes there are shoes with secrets, bloodstains that will not come out, sticky patches that tell of spilled wine, or worse, bits of straw and twigs stuck in the laces. You clean what you can, ignoring what you cannot. You have learned never to ask questions, never to wonder about the lives lived above these shoes. Your world is the ground, the leather, the dirt, the brush. You do not look up. You do not look ahead. You focus on the work. Lunch, if it comes, is a brief interruption. You eat what you have, usually nothing more than a heel of bread or a spoonful of beans, while watching the street, waiting for the next client. There is no shade, no rest, no comfort. Your legs stiffen, your back tightens, but you must keep working. There is always another shoe, another boot, another pair that demands your attention. By afternoon, your hands are trembling, your head aches, your throat is raw from dust and thirst. Still, you do not stop. The overseer checks on you from time to time, making sure you are not slacking, reminding you of the consequences if you are found wanting. You force yourself to keep going, to move your hands in steady circles, to push through the pain and the boredom and the growing sense of hopelessness. Evening brings little relief. The last clients come as the light fades, their shoes caked with the day's work or play. You do your best, knowing that these last efforts matter just as much as the first. When you finally pack up your tools, your hands are numb, your arms heavy, your spirit drained. The shoes are clean, or as clean as you can make them, but you are not. You never are. As you trudge home, you realize that the work is never truly finished. There will be more shoes tomorrow, more dirt, more demands. The process will repeat over and over until you can no longer tell one day from the next, one pair of shoes from another, one part of yourself from the mud beneath your feet. That is the real work, not cleaning shoes, but surviving the endless grind, the repetition, the futility. That is the labor that shapes you day after day into something harder, something smaller, something that endures. There is a strange kind of magic to the line, the way it appears, grows, and never seems to end. Even before the first hint of sun, as you take your place on the street with your battered box and threadbare rags, there is already a queue forming. It is not always a single, neat line, but rather a gathering of shoes, boots, loafers, slippers, and sandals, each attached to a pair of legs belonging to someone with a schedule, an opinion, and an expectation that you will work faster, harder, better. You do not know most of their names. Sometimes you recognize faces, sometimes only shoes. You remember the boot that always comes with the deep cut along the side, the fine lady's slipper with the missing button, the child's scuffed shoe that has grown no cleaner despite your best efforts. The faces above these shoes blur together over time, one set of impatient eyes, one collection of hands that tap, wave, or clutch a coin tightly, as if it might be stolen away at any moment. You kneel at the front of the line, but the queue is never really behind you. It curves around corners, fans out across the street, ebbs and flows like the tide. There are times when the street is nearly empty, but more often there is always someone waiting, watching, judging your speed. Some are regulars, appearing every morning, their shoes in a state of perpetual disaster. Others are strangers passing through town, wanting to look their best before a meeting, a church service, or a rendezvous. The line is both a promise and a threat. On good days, the steady stream of clients means the master will be satisfied, and perhaps the overseer will leave you alone. On bad days, the queue feels like a punishment, each new pair of shoes a reminder that your own life is on pause, your needs and aches irrelevant to the world around you. No matter how quickly you work, There is always another set of feet shuffling closer, another impatient voice asking, "How long will this take?" You learn to gauge the mood of the line. When it is short, the clients are anxious, their words sharp, their tempers short. When it is long, they grow restless, shifting from foot to foot, glancing at watches or the church clock, muttering complaints to anyone who will listen. Children fidget, women sigh, men check their pocket watches and look at you as if you have the power to bend time itself. Sometimes the line becomes a performance. There are those who treat your work as entertainment, a little show to pass the minutes before their own turn arrives. They watch your hands, your back, your face. They joke with one another, sometimes at your expense, sometimes not. They share news, gossip, the latest rumors about town. Occasionally, they compete to see whose shoes will shine brightest, whose boots will draw the most compliments later in the day. For you, the queue is a blur of motion and monotony. You work without stopping, your body moving on memory, your mind drifting to a quieter place. You hear the same questions, the same complaints, the same instructions again and again. You are told to be careful, to be quick, to mind your hands, to polish just a little more on the toe. You are warned not to scratch the leather, not to leave a mark, not to get the laces dirty. The rules are infinite, and they are always changing. As the hours pass, you lose track of time. The line is endless, but time moves in jerks and jolts. Sometimes the day stretches out, every second marked by the scrape of your brush and the ache in your knees. Sometimes whole hours vanish while you work, lost to the repetition. You try to keep count 3 pairs, 5 pairs, 7, 10, but you lose the numbers quickly. By midday, your only sense of progress is the fading light and the growing ache in your bones. There is a certain helplessness to the line. No matter how many shoes you shine, no matter how many feet you serve, you cannot reach the end. The customers seem to multiply, each one appearing as soon as the last has left. The street is their world, and you are just another fixture, expected to perform, to endure, to be present, and invisible all at once. The line does not care about your hunger or your thirst, your fatigue or your pain. The line does not pause when you are dizzy from heat or cold, when your fingers cramp or your back spasms. The line does not notice when your knees bleed through your trousers, when your breath grows shallow, when your eyes blur with exhaustion. If you stop, even for a moment, there are questions, complaints, threats. The line is always right. You are always wrong. Sometimes, at the end of the day, you dream about the line. It appears in your sleep, a parade of feet, an endless shuffle, a procession that has no beginning and no end. You wake with the rhythm of their voices echoing in your ears, the weight of their expectations pressing down on your chest. And in the morning, the line is there again, waiting for you, unchanged and undiminished, as permanent as the dirt under your nails and the ache in your heart. It is the measure of your days, the proof of your invisibility, the endless queue that marks your place in the world. You have spent enough years on your knees to know that every client brings more than shoes for you to clean. They bring moods and judgments, egos and boredom. They bring, above all else, a certainty that you exist for their convenience. It is a lesson pressed into you by repetition, a thousand reminders every day that you are not the point, you are the background, the silent function, the means to a shinier end. For some clients, you are a curiosity, one of those stories they can later recount with a chuckle over dinner. My boots were shined by a colored boy today, right on the corner, would you believe it? These are the ones who examine you like an artifact, their heads cocked, their questions abrupt and unnecessary. Where are you from? How old are you really? Do you like this work? You know better than to answer with the truth. They do not want the truth, they want entertainment. Your real story is too ugly for polite conversation. Others are openly irritated by your existence. You see it in the way they thrust their boots at you, the way their lips pinch, or their eyebrows raise at the sight of your rags. They look past you, through you, as if you are a puddle to be stepped over, an inconvenient shadow cluttering their morning. These are the clients who sigh the loudest, who tap their watches, who complain about the wait, the service, the weather, the world. You are simply the nearest target. When their voice sharpens, you listen for the words that will tell you whether the complaint will end with a mutter or a blow. Some are suspicious. They watch you carefully, as if you might try to steal a button or scratch the leather out of spite. They count their coins before and after paying, their eyes never leaving your hands. You are used to being watched, measured, doubted. It does not sting like it used to. Suspicion is easier than malice. There are the ones who believe they are kind. These clients smile at you, call you boy or son in a tone meant to be gentle, and sometimes even ask about your day. Their kindness is sharp edged, wrapped in pity. They tell you to keep your chin up, to work hard and mind your manners, as if the universe has a scale, and someday, if you suffer enough, it will tip in your favor. They leave you with advice you did not ask for and a few extra seconds of conversation, convinced they have performed a good deed. You have learned to nod and smile, to thank them as if their words are coins you can spend on bread. Children can be the cruelest and also the most honest. Some mimic their parents' scorn, daring each other to touch your hair, laughing at your hands or your accent. Others, less guarded, simply stare at you with open curiosity, asking the questions adults are too polite to voice. Are you a slave? Does it hurt? Why do you do it? Sometimes a child will surprise you, a word of thanks, a gift of a crust of bread, a shy glance that reminds you of your own lost innocence. But mostly, they learn the lessons of their elders quickly. The world teaches them whom to look down on. The wealthy clients are the easiest to serve and the hardest to endure. Their shoes are expensive, their time more so, their attention wandering. They talk over your head, making plans and jokes, rarely noticing your hands at work. Sometimes they boast about how little they paid for your labor, as if this thriftiness makes them clever. Sometimes they complain about taxes, about politics, about the troublesome people who refuse to know their place. You listen because you must. but you learn nothing you did not already know. Power makes people loud and lazy. There are a very few, who meet your eyes. Their expressions are difficult to read, pity perhaps, or discomfort, or a fleeting sense of shame. They never say anything that matters, never break the script, never linger, but you remember them. You remember every person who, even for a second, sees you as more than a pair of hands and a bowed head. Most, though, prefer you invisible. They hand you their shoes without a word, wait without speaking, pay without thanks. For them, you are a tool, a living, breathing brush. When you finish, they walk away, sometimes without even glancing at the shine you worked so hard to produce. They do not see the effort, the pain, the pride, or the shame. They see only the end result, their own reflection gleaming in the leather. Humiliation is woven into every transaction. The polite smile that does not reach the eyes, the careless command, the expectation of gratitude. Sometimes a client makes a joke about you, your work, or your life, and looks to see if you will laugh. You do, or you pretend to, because it is safer to be agreeable, to be good, to play the role they have written for you. Your dignity is a secret, something you keep hidden behind your teeth, clenched tight as a secret prayer. By the end of the day, you have been called everything and nothing. You have been praised for your speed, scolded for your clumsiness, ignored, mocked, pitied, and dismissed. Every attitude in the world has passed through your hands, every flavor of disdain and fleeting, useless kindness. It all passes through you, leaving you unchanged on the outside, but scraped raw within. You remind yourself that it is only work, only another day. You remind yourself that nothing they say can change who you are. But the truth is simpler and harder. Every day you kneel, and every day you rise a little heavier, a little more invisible, a little less surprised by the way the world looks at you. You have polished hundreds, perhaps thousands of shoes in your life, and yet your hands have rarely held a coin for longer than a moment. Payment for you is a ritual of frustration, a theater where you play your part but never take home the prize. The transaction is never simple. It is always a lesson, always a reminder of your place in a system where labor and reward are strangers to each other. At the end of each job, the client, if he is in a generous mood, drops a coin onto your box or into your outstretched, shaking hand. Sometimes it is a penny, sometimes a nickel, very rarely anything more. More often, the client simply flicks the coin, careless where it lands. The money rolls through the dust or sinks into the mud, and you must scramble to pick it up with the same urgency and humility you show in shining shoes. It is a spectacle, and you are expected to play your part, quick, grateful, silent. But the coin is not really yours. You know this as well as you know your own name. The rule is clear and unwavering. Everything you earn, every penny, every halfpenny, belongs to the master. If the overseer is near, you hand the coins over immediately, pressing them into his palm without meeting his eye. If you are alone, you drop them into the small tin he keeps under his arm, counting yourself lucky if you are not accused of theft for the brief delay. You never pocket even the smallest coin. There are stories, whispered warnings about what happens to those caught stealing, and you have seen enough evidence to know that those stories are true. The master may tally the day's earnings himself, or he may let the overseer do it. Sometimes they count aloud, sometimes they do it in silence, writing numbers in a ledger you are not allowed to see. The total is not just a measure of your effort, it is a measure of your value, your obedience, your usefulness. If the sum is too low, you are questioned, scolded, sometimes punished. They never ask if there were fewer clients, if the rain drove people away, if your hands were too swollen to work quickly. The fault, always, is yours. On rare occasions, when the master is feeling benevolent or wants to impress a guest, he might allow you to keep a coin. It is always accompanied by a speech about gratitude and good fortune, as if you have been handed the world and not a penny. You accept the coin with bowed head and murmured thanks, and then hide it deep in your pocket. But the coin is never truly yours. You spend days, sometimes weeks, waiting for it to be noticed, reclaimed, demanded back as repayment for some imagined slight or a torn shirt. It is a loan, never a gift. Sometimes a client insists on giving you a tip, an extra coin, a piece of fruit, a roll from the bakery. The first time it happened, you thought it might be a sign that kindness existed. Now you know better. The overseer will see the tip and take it for himself. If he misses it, you give it up later to avoid accusations. On the rare occasion you manage to keep a morsel of bread or a bruised apple, you eat it quickly, in secret, savoring each bite as though it were a feast. Even these stolen moments are tinged with anxiety, as you fear discovery more than you relish the taste. You have learned that payment is not about fairness or effort or even luck. It is about power. The coins are a performance, a way for those above you to measure out your survival in increments so small you almost miss them. The master's wealth does not come from his own labor, it comes from yours and from the labor of all those who kneel and sweat and polish and scrub. Every coin you hand over is another link in a chain you will never see the end of. Occasionally, the master rewards you for diligence or obedience, not with money, but with something less tangible, a nod, a word of praise, permission to rest an extra minute at lunch, or to stand in the shade for a moment while the sun beats down on your back. These are the rewards you are expected to value, and you do because the alternative is nothing. Sometimes you think about what it would mean to be truly rewarded, to work and keep the fruit of your labor, to choose how to spend your earnings. The thought feels dangerous, almost traitorous, and so you push it away. Most days, there is no reward at all, only more work. The line of shoes stretches on, the coins pile up in someone else's hand, and you grow accustomed to the rhythm of giving everything and receiving nothing. If you are lucky, you keep what dignity you have. Hidden behind your smile, your lowered eyes, your silent endurance, And so you come to understand that payment is not a matter of coins or kind words. It is the right to keep going, the chance to live another day, the hope that tomorrow might bring something better, though you know in your heart that tomorrow will look very much like today. The true payment for your labor is survival, and the cost is everything you have. Breaks are not really yours. They come when the street empties for a moment, when the queue thins out, or the overseer glances away. Sometimes you are permitted a brief rest because the master has business elsewhere, or because the midday sun becomes so heavy that even the white folks slow down. You do not sit for comfort. You crouch in the nearest sliver of shade, or sink onto your box with a sigh that dares not last too long. The time is never truly your own. You keep one ear tuned to the sound of footsteps, a cart turning the corner, the sharp whistle that means your minute is up. Even when you are alone, you find yourself measuring each second, anxious that someone will call your name, that a client will appear and mark you as lazy for daring to pause. The break is a borrowed thing, and the price of keeping it is vigilance. Food is a different story, and not a happier one. The meal you dream of and the meal you receive are not the same. If you are lucky, your day starts with a crust of bread, rough and stale, tucked into your pocket before you leave the quarters. Sometimes, if there is a bit of fat or a sliver of salt pork left over from the master's table, you get that too. Never enough to fill your belly, but just enough to remind you how hungry you really are. The midday meal is taken on the edge of the street, in the company of dust and flies and the endless parade of feet. You unwrap your ration with care, as if there might be more hidden inside. A scoop of beans, a spoonful of grits, a turnip boiled until it has lost all taste but the memory of soil. On rare days, there is a slice of bacon or a handful of cornmeal. Most days, you eat quickly, not bothering to taste. Hunger is a wolf that never leaves your side. You learn to ignore it, the way you ignore pain or fatigue or humiliation. If the overseer is near, you eat standing up, with your back straight, your eyes fixed on the ground. If you are alone, you might dare to sit, to stretch your legs, to close your eyes for a moment, and imagine a world where meals come with comfort, where you could eat until you are full, where you could choose what goes into your mouth. These are dangerous thoughts, and you chase them away with every bite. Water is rationed just as strictly as food. There is a bucket set at the corner of the street, filled from the pump in the yard behind the kitchen. By midday, the water is warm, tinged with iron and the taste of old wood. You drink sparingly, knowing that too many trips to the pump will draw suspicion, that every swallow is counted just as every coin is counted. The thirst is another companion, gnawing at you quietly, reminding you that even the smallest comfort must be earned, justified, controlled when the weather is cruel, when the sun blazes or the wind howls. You feel your hunger and thirst most keenly. Your mouth goes dry, your stomach cramps, your head swims. Still, you work. The clients notice nothing. They do not see your trembling hands, your hollow cheeks, the way you stagger when you rise too quickly. If they do, they ignore it. Your suffering is invisible to them, as ordinary as the dirt beneath their feet. On special occasions, a holiday, a wedding at the big house, a rare moment of generosity from the master, you might be given something extra, a piece of cake, a wedge of cheese, a fruit past its prime. These are moments of celebration, whispered about for days before and after, treasured for their rarity. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful, holding the sweetness on your tongue as long as you can. But these moments are exceptions, not rules, and hunger always returns. At night, after the day's labor is done, you return to the quarters and find the evening meal waiting. It is more of the same: cornbread if you are fortunate, stew if there is enough to go around, sometimes nothing but scraps, and the memory of a promise. You eat in silence, surrounded by others who share your fate, each of you chasing the same meager hope that tomorrow's meal will be better. Sickness is common, and hunger is its constant companion. Children grow thin, their eyes too large for their faces. Old people lose their teeth, their strength, their ability to swallow more than broth. You have learned to eat what you are given when you are given it, and to be grateful for it, even when it does not fill you, even when it makes your belly ache, even when you know it is not enough. Gratitude is another survival skill, one you practice every day. There are times, in the dead of night, when you wake to the sound of your own stomach. It growls and twists, reminding you that the day's labors have earned you nothing more than another day, another chance to work, another chance to be hungry. You close your eyes and try to dream of something better: a table full of food, a cup that is never empty, a moment when you do not have to measure your worth by the weight of what you have eaten. But dawn always comes, and with it, the same break, the same ration, the same cycle. You learn to accept it because you have no other choice. Hunger becomes another part of you, as constant as your shadow, as sure as the work that fills your days. The street is not just your workplace, it is your battlefield, your prison yard, your test. Each day you step onto its broken stones and uneven ruts. You enter a world where danger lurks behind every corner, wearing many faces, some familiar, some foreign, all of them threatening in their own way. You learn to keep your head down and your senses sharp, because you know that harm can come from anywhere and nowhere at once. The dangers start with people. There are the clients themselves, of course. Not all are content with words. Some arrive already angry, their mood soured by a poor night's sleep or an argument at breakfast. These men treat you as an outlet for their temper, a living punch bag for grievances large and small. A single scuffed spot on a boot or a moment's delay can earn you a backhand across the cheek, a sharp kick to the ribs, a hissed threat that you had better not forget next time. You swallow your anger and your pain because there is no one to tell and nowhere to go. Then there are the drunkards. They stagger through the early morning haze or stumble by at dusk, their words slurred, their movements unpredictable. Sometimes they are loud, braying like donkeys for amusement. Sometimes they are quiet, dangerous in their stillness, as if a storm is gathering beneath their skin. They shove you aside, spit at your feet, sometimes take your rag or brush just to watch you scramble after it. You cannot fight back. You can only wait for them to move on, your heart pounding, your breath caught between fear and humiliation. Lawmen and overseers are a different kind of danger. Their boots carry authority, and with authority comes the power to invent rules and punishments on the spot. A sheriff might accuse you of theft if a coin goes missing, or blame you for the slightest disorder on the street. The overseer watches your every move, ready to report you for imagined laziness or insolence. Sometimes, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time is enough. A harsh word, a thrown stone, a night spent in the dark corner of a cell for a crime you did not commit and will not be allowed to deny. There are dangers from your own kind, too. Not every black face is a friend. Free blacks walk the same streets, sometimes with a wary pride, sometimes with a nervous eagerness to prove their loyalty to the white world. A word from them, a pointed finger, can mean trouble for you, a report to the authorities, a rumor passed to the master, an accusation whispered in exchange for a favor. You trust no one fully, not even those who share your skin. Stray dogs roam the alleys, their ribs showing through patchy fur, their eyes wild with hunger. Sometimes they snarl at you, baring their teeth, daring you to stand your ground. Sometimes they follow you, sniffing for scraps, hoping for a dropped crust of bread. You keep your distance, knowing that a bite could mean fever, infection, even death, luxuries you cannot afford. The weather itself is a threat. In summer, the sun bakes the cobbles until they burn your bare feet, sweat blinding your eyes, heat swirling up from the ground in shimmering waves. You feel yourself growing dizzy, your mouth dry, your limbs heavy as wood. In winter, icy winds cut through your rags, your fingers numb, your breath a pale cloud in the frigid air. You know that too much cold, too much heat, can leave you broken and helpless, prey to illness and weakness. Every day brings the risk of illness, fevers that sweep through the quarters, coughs that turn into something more deadly, infections that fester in the smallest cut. The street is not clean, and neither are the people who pass along it. Disease is a constant shadow, its claws always reaching, waiting for a moment of carelessness or bad luck. Even the very ground is dangerous. Broken glass glitters in the gutter, hidden among the muck and leaves. Rusty nails, sharp stones, splinters, all of them lie in wait for a careless step. Your feet are calloused and tough, but not invincible. A bad wound means days of pain, risk of infection, maybe even the loss of your job if you cannot kneel to work. And if you cannot work, what then? You do not let yourself think about that for long. At night, as you walk back to the quarters, shadows press in from every side. The street empties out, but the sense of danger remains. You listen for footsteps behind you, for the sound of voices raised in anger or laughter, for the bark of a dog or the distant clang of a bell. You keep to the middle of the road when you can, avoiding the darkest alleys, moving quickly, wishing yourself invisible. Children are not spared from these dangers. You watch them closely, teaching them to avoid certain men, to cross the street when trouble is near, to disappear when tempers flare. You see the fear in their eyes and remember your own lessons, the ones taught with pain and loss, the ones you wish you had never had to learn. And so every day you step onto the street, bracing yourself for what might come. Danger is as much a part of your life as hunger and exhaustion. You learn to survive it, to anticipate it, to blend into the background when it prowls too close. Survival is not about bravery. It is about endurance, caution, and luck. Mostly luck, the kind that never lasts for long. The street is not your friend. It is not your enemy either. It is just the place where you prove again and again that you are still here, still standing, still willing to risk another day. Fatigue settles in your bones before the sun has climbed high, and by midday it fills every part of you. Your arms are heavy, your knees tremble, your head feels packed with wool, thoughts slow and sticky. You are tired when you wake, tired as you work, and tired when you lie down at night. This is a weariness deeper than mere sleep can cure, a tiredness that comes from knowing that no amount of rest will ever be enough. The work demands your body and gives back only pain. Your hands ache from gripping brushes and rags, from scrubbing at stubborn stains, from the cold and the heat and the endless repetition. Your back burns from bending over shoe after shoe, day after day, never allowed to straighten or stretch. The muscles not beneath your skin stiffen into cords, and sometimes, when you try to stand, you feel as if you might never rise again. But pain is not the worst of it. Worse is the sickness that moves through the quarters like a fog, silent and inescapable. There are many kinds, some sharp and fast, others slow and gnawing. Coughs echo in the darkness, waking you in the middle of the night. Fever sweeps from bed to bed, leaving the young shivering and the old gasping for air. Rash and swelling, aching bones and swollen throats. Every illness seems more dangerous here, in this place where medicine is as rare as hope. You have learned to hide your sickness. You have learned to swallow your groans and silence your coughs, because to show weakness is to invite punishment, suspicion, or being left behind. The overseer has no patience for the ill. If you can walk, you can work, he says, and so you walk, even when your body tells you to stop, even when every step is agony. You have seen what happens to those who cannot. They are left in the hut, ignored, their food rationed to save resources for the useful. Sometimes they recover. More often, they simply disappear. Cuts and scrapes, once small annoyances, become open doors to infection. A blister from a new pair of boots, a scratch from a broken nail, a burn from a stray ember at the fire. You have no ointments, no clean bandages. You tear strips from your shirt and wrap the wounds, washing them in dirty water and praying they do not fester. Sometimes a sore will not heal, growing red and angry, oozing pus. You keep working, because you must. Malaria creeps up from the swamps, carried by mosquitoes that swarm in the summer dusk. The fever comes suddenly, chills, then burning heat, then sweats so heavy your sheets are soaked through. You shiver and shake, your teeth clattering, your mind drifting in and out of dreams. There is no quinine for you, no doctor to come with cool hands and medicine. If you survive, you are weaker for it. If you do not, the world moves on without you. Sometimes you lose your sense of hunger, even though your stomach is never full. Sickness robs you of appetite, makes food taste like ash. Your belly cramps and gurgles, and you force yourself to swallow, knowing that if you do not eat, you will have no strength for the next day's work. There are days when you vomit everything you put down, when even water seems too much to bear. Fatigue is not just physical, it lives in your mind as well. The endless repetition of days, the sameness of suffering, the knowledge that no matter how hard you work, nothing changes. These things wear you down, grind your spirit to dust. Some days you feel your hope shrivel, curling into a hard, bitter kernel inside your chest. Other days, you do not think at all. You simply move from one shoe to the next, a machine built for labor and little else. There are nights when you cannot sleep, when the ache in your bones and the buzzing in your head keep you awake until the stars fade. You hear the others tossing and turning, coughing and sighing. You smell the sickness, sharp and sour, mingling with sweat and fear. You pray, if you still remember how, for a morning when you might wake rested, when your body might not feel like a sack of broken stones. But the morning brings in only more of the same, more pain, more work, more waiting. You see sickness everywhere, in the children who no longer play, in the old men who lean against walls, too weak to stand straight, in the women who move more slowly each week, their eyes glazed with fever, their hands shaking as they cook, sew, or scrub. Death is a constant rumor, a shadow that passes through the quarters in the night, carrying away those too tired, too sick, or simply too unlucky to make it to another dawn. There is no healing here, only endurance. You wait for the fever to break, for the pain to dull, for your strength to return just enough to let you keep going. There is no doctor unless you are valuable, no medicine unless it serves the master's interests. Old remedies passed down from Africa and whispered in the dark offer little comfort. A poultice, a prayer, a hope that nature will do what men refuse. And still, you rise. Still, you work. Still, you kneel before another pair of shoes, your body broken but unbowed. Fatigue is a cloak you cannot remove, sickness a shackle you cannot unlock. You carry them with you every hour, every day, because there is no choice. The world will not stop for your suffering, and so you do not stop either. Evening does not come as a relief. It arrives like a gray sigh, a curtain falling over the same old stage. As the sun slips behind the rooftops and the street grows quieter, you pack your battered box, gather your ragged rags, and rub the ache from your knees as best you can. The last of the clients wander off, boots gleaming for a night on the town, or scuffed already from a careless step. The street empties, but your weariness grows heavier. The day is finished, and you are not. You stand slowly, stretching the stiffness from your back, knowing the effort will not erase the pain. Your hands throb, your knuckles swollen from hours of work, and the taste of dust lingers at the back of your throat. Your body feels used up, like a candle burned down to its final stub. Still, you gather your things, because to leave anything behind is to lose it forever and turn toward home, if home is a word that still has meaning. The walk back is quieter than the morning journey, but not easier. The street is almost empty, the shops shuttered, the lights slipping away in streaks of purple and red. Shadows pool in the gutters, and every sound seems louder: the creak of a wagon, the distant bark of a dog, the laughter of white men outside a tavern, the muttered curses of other laborers heading to their own small corners of the world. You move quickly, trying to avoid notice, knowing that after dark, trouble grows bolder. Your feet drag, heavy with the day's labor and the thick, clinging mud. Every step is a reminder of how little you have gained. Just another day traded for exhaustion, for bruises, for hunger that bites deeper with every passing hour. You keep your head down, shoulders hunched, eyes scanning the ground for sharp stones, broken glass, or anything else that could turn your long walk into a slow crawl. You know better than to look up, better than to catch anyone's gaze. Sometimes you pass other slaves, returning from their own work, faces you know, though names are rarely spoken aloud. You exchange silent nods or a wordless look that says, "We made it through another day." It is not comfort exactly, but it is all you have. Occasionally, you pass free blacks on the street, walking with an uneasy pride, their eyes flicking away from yours, as if afraid of what they might see reflected there. You do not blame them. You understand. The path home takes you past the big house, its windows glowing with lamplight, its porch alive with laughter and music and the clink of glasses. You hear snatches of conversation, a woman's bright laughter, the barking of a dog too fat and spoiled to chase anything but scraps. For a moment, you allow yourself to imagine what it would be like to step inside, to sit at a real table, to rest on a soft bed. But the thought is dangerous, so you push it away and keep walking. As you near the quarters, the air changes. The smell of the day's work fades, replaced by the familiar sense of home. Wood smoke from the cooking fire, sweat, damp earth, the sharp tang of boiling greens or roasting corn if you are lucky. Children dart between the huts, their laughter quick and nervous. Old men sit on stumps or crates, their hands folded in their laps, staring into the dusk as if searching for something lost long ago. You enter your hut, ducking your head beneath the low doorway. The darkness inside is thick, pressing in on all sides. You see the shapes of bodies curled on mats, hear the soft murmur of voices, the whimper of a baby, the cough of the sick. The air is hot and stale, thick with the sense of unwashed bodies, old food, and the ever present undertone of fear. You place your things in their usual spot, careful not to disturb anyone. There is no space, no privacy, only the comfort of shared suffering. The evening meal, if there is one, is a quiet affair. You eat what you are given: cornbread, beans, a scrap of salt pork, sitting shoulder to shoulder with those who share your fate. Conversation is muted, broken by sighs and silences. There are no questions about the day. Everyone knows the answers already. After eating, you try to wash away the dirt of work. You use cold water from a battered bucket, scrubbing your hands and face, wiping sweat from your neck, doing what you can to feel human. The dirt never really leaves. It clings to your skin, sinks into your pores, becomes part of you. Clean is a memory, not a reality. Night falls quickly, darkness filling the corners of the hut. You lie down on your mat, listening to the sounds of the quarters, the scrape of rats in the walls, the low hum of voices, the distant rumble of thunder, or the wind rattling loose boards. You close your eyes and try to let your body rest, though the ache in your bones and the tightness in your chest make sleep a fragile, broken thing. Sometimes you dream, but the dreams are thin and fleeting, memories of a life you cannot quite recall, or visions of a freedom you have never known. More often, you lie awake, counting your breaths, waiting for the dawn, knowing that when it comes, you will have to do it all over again. Evening is not an ending. It is just another kind of beginning. One more turn in the endless wheel, one more night traded for the hope of a better tomorrow, even when hope feels like a stranger. You rest because you must, not because you believe in rest. You tell yourself softly as you drift into a restless sleep, I survived. I am still here. For now, that is enough. In the brief moments between the end of work and the beginning of sleep, you sometimes find space for words. Fragile, whispered things traded in the gloom of the quarters or outside beneath a threadbare sky. Conversation is not luxury here, it is survival. It is the only currency left to those who have nothing else to spend. You cling to these moments, though you know that hope is as thin as the mats you lie on, and talk is as dangerous as it is necessary. You sit with your back against the cool mud wall, knees pulled to your chest, listening to the slow hum of life around you. The voices come and go, never rising above a murmur. Laughter is rare, and when it comes, it is edged with bitterness. There are stories passed down from elders, tales of Africa, of freedom, of families left behind or scattered by the whims of masters and markets. These stories hang in the air like ghosts, half believed and half forgotten. You listen to old Jeremiah, his voice creaking with age, as he tells of a river so wide you could not see the other side, of trees that bore fruit year round, of nights when no one was afraid. You know these tales are memories more than promises, but you let yourself believe for a moment, if only to remember that there was a world before this one, and maybe there could be a world after. The children listen, wide eyed and quiet, but you see the doubt already blooming in their faces. They have never known a life that was not marked by hunger, by fear, by the long shadow of the Master's house. Sometimes the talk turns practical. Who is sick? Who was beaten? Whose family is missing someone tonight? News travels fast, but not always true. You piece together the day's events from snatches of gossip, from the way someone limps or keeps their eyes lowered. You learn to read the meaning in a gesture, a silence, a bruise that was not there yesterday. Words are precious because they can be used against you, but silence is deadly because it can swallow you whole. When the overseer is near, conversation dies away. You return to your chores, mending rags, nursing wounds, tending to the small needs of the body until the danger passes. Even when you speak, you do not use real names. Do not speak of escape. Do not ask the questions that linger at the edge of every conversation. You have seen what happens to those who are too bold, too hopeful, too willing to risk everything for a chance at something better. Some have vanished in the night, and no one asks after them aloud. In the darkness, you and a friend might share a few quiet words, voices pitched just above a whisper. You talk about the past, about people you barely remember or never met, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. You wonder aloud what it would be like to see them again, to speak freely, to sit around a table and eat your fill. These are dangerous dreams, but dreams are all you have. Sometimes you catch yourself speaking of after, and you quickly shut your mouth, remembering that here, after, is a word that can cost you everything. You speak of survival, mostly. Which root eases a cough? Which weed soothes a burn? Which path through the woods is safest if you are sent out after dark? You share knowledge the way others share bread, carefully, knowing it might save a life or simply buy another day. When someone finds a bit of meat or fruit, you pass it around in small bites, each mouthful a brief defiance against hunger and despair. Generosity is a rebellion, one you cannot afford but cannot refuse. Hope, when it comes, is cautious. You hear it in the prayers muttered in the corner, in the old hymns sung low and slow, voices twining together in the night. Some still believe in a deliverance, a day when the chains will fall away and the world will turn right side up. You want to believe too, but your faith is cracked and faded. Still, you join in the singing, letting the sound carry you for a moment above the weight of your body, the ache in your bones. Not all talk is gentle. There are arguments over food, over space, over a harsh word, or a careless elbow. The quarters are crowded, tempers short, and forgiveness is another thing rationed like everything else. You learn to apologize quickly, to patch quarrels before they turn into grudges, knowing that unity is the only shield you have against the world outside. Children ask questions in the dark. Why do we have to live like this? Why does the master get everything and we get nothing? Will we ever be free? You answer as best you can, though you have no answers worth believing. You tell them stories to help them sleep, though you know nightmares will come anyway. As the night deepens, the conversation slows. Words turn to sighs, to prayers, to the steady breathing of those who have already surrendered to exhaustion. You lie back and stare at the patch of sky you can see through the roof, counting stars, and thinking of all the things you cannot say aloud. Conversation is survival. It is memory, hope, warning, and comfort. You speak because silence is too much to bear, and because even in a world built to keep you silent, you cannot help reaching for another voice in the darkness. You hold these words close, knowing they are as fragile as you are and just as necessary. You live with humiliation the way others live with weather. It changes, but it never truly leaves. Some days it is a drizzle, quiet, constant, something you barely notice because you are so used to being damp. Other days it pours, soaking through your skin and down to your bones. You learn to expect it, to anticipate the sting and the chill, to tuck your dignity away where it is harder for the world to reach. It comes in the smallest gestures: a shoe thrust too close to your face, a boot pressed against your ribs to steady you as you polish. A client spits not at you, but near you, and you know it is not an accident. A lady drops her handkerchief for you to pick up, looking away as if you are a shadow cast by the sun. You kneel for hours, sometimes in puddles, sometimes in filth, feeling every eye that passes linger just a moment longer than necessary. Some laugh, some pretend not to see you at all. Words are another kind of lash. Boy, they call you, even when your hair is streaked with gray. Lazy, clumsy, slow. No one expects you to answer, and you learn not to. When you try to explain a delay, they do not listen. When you apologize, it is dismissed as noise. Your voice, your truth, your reasons are all considered less valuable than the shine on their shoes. Sometimes you are mocked for your rags, for your hands, for your accent, for the color of your skin. Jokes told as if you are not there, sometimes even when you are, your presence nothing but fuel for the punchline. The humiliation is public and private, constant and unpredictable. It comes from clients and overseers, from strangers on the street, from children who have learned the lessons of their elders too well. Even those who mean to be kind find ways to remind you of your place. A coin tossed to the ground, a pat on the head, a pitying smile that tells you you are not quite human. Some want gratitude for their condescension, others want your fear. All want you to know that you are less. But humiliation is not the end. There is always punishment lurking behind it, waiting for you to forget your place, to move too slowly, to speak when silence is expected, to make a mistake that only a white man is allowed to make and survive. Punishment is the law here, as natural as hunger. It is the shadow that follows every step, every word, every breath. Sometimes punishment is swift: a slap across the face, a kick to the back, a cane across your knuckles as you polish a shoe. You do not cry out, not because it does not hurt, but because crying out is an admission of pain, and that too can be punished. You learn to swallow your cries, to turn them into silence, to let the ache settle into your muscles and become part of you. Other times, punishment is delayed, drawn out, made into a spectacle. The overseer or master waits until enough eyes are watching. You are called forward, your crime listed, too slow, too insolent, too clumsy, too tired. You are made to kneel in front of the others, or to stand with your arms above your head until your shoulders burn. Sometimes you are sent to the stocks, your ankles and wrists pinched in rough wood, left for hours in the sun or the rain while passers-by gawk or jeer or simply look away. The lash is always a possibility. You have seen it used for reasons large and small, for running late, for dropping a brush, for failing to greet a visitor with the right mix of fear and respect. The pain is sharp, but what lingers longer is the shame, the knowledge that you have been broken in public, reduced to a lesson for others to learn from. Your scars are not just physical, they are written into your memory, reminders of every time you were taught to obey. Sometimes punishment is quieter, a meal withheld, a night spent outside in the cold, a warning whispered in your ear that leaves you shivering for days. You are reminded again and again that your comfort is a privilege, your health a bargaining chip, your safety an illusion. The threat of punishment hangs over every moment, shaping your movements, your words, your thoughts. You learn to watch for signs, the tight set of the overseer's jaw, the sudden quiet in the street, the way a client's eyes narrow when you answer too quickly or not quickly enough. You learn to judge when to beg and when to bite your tongue, when to hurry and when to disappear. You become an expert in survival, not because you are brave, but because the alternative is unthinkable. Humiliation and punishment are meant to teach you something, though the lesson is always the same. Know your place, accept your fate, remember who holds the power. Sometimes you think the true punishment is not the pain, but the way it seeps into your sense of self, the way it shapes you into something smaller, quieter, less dangerous. And yet, some part of you resists. Some part of you remembers what it was like to feel whole. Some part of you whispers in the dark that there is nothing natural or right about this world, that the shame belongs not to you, but to those who inflict it. You hold on to that part, fragile as it is, because it is the only piece of yourself that the world cannot take away. Dreams are a peculiar mercy, a double edged escape. Sometimes, when you close your eyes in the darkness of the quarters, you slip into another world, a world not defined by dust and orders and the ache in your bones. In your dreams, you are not a shoe shiner, not a number on a ledger, not a thing to be scolded or punished. You are simply you, whatever that means. Whoever you were before this place hollowed you out and filled you up with someone else's story. There are nights when the dreams are soft, almost sweet. You find yourself standing beside a river wide as forever, water smooth as glass, the air thick with the smell of fruit and sunlight. You hear laughter you cannot quite place, see faces that are blurry but beloved. You run, barefoot and unafraid, through grass taller than your shoulders, the ground gentle beneath your feet. In these dreams, your stomach is never empty, your hands never tired, your spirit never so heavy that it drags behind you like a broken limb. The world in these dreams is yours, bright, endless, untouched by chains. But the sweet dreams are rare. More often, sleep is a battlefield. The day's humiliations replay themselves in feverish detail, sharper and brighter than before. You dream of shoes that will not shine, of overseers shouting your name, of coins that slip from your fingers into bottomless mud. You wake with your heart pounding, sweat slick on your neck, the echo of a blow still ringing in your ears. Sometimes you cannot tell where the nightmare ends and the morning begins. Sometimes the difference feels meaningless. Memories are not always kinder than dreams. In the rare, quiet moments when the world grows still and you have nothing but your thoughts, you reach back for the past. It is a dangerous habit, but a human one. You remember a mother's touch, the smell of her hair, the soft hum of a lullaby. You remember a father's hands, rough but gentle, guiding yours as you learned to tie a knot or plant a seed. You remember laughter, the good kind, the kind that shakes your chest and fills the room like sunlight. These memories flicker in the gloom, fragile as candlelight, and you guard them fiercely. But memory is not all kindness. There are holes, places where faces have blurred, voices have faded, where you cannot remember if a story is yours or one you borrowed from someone else. The trauma of separation, the ache of loss, leaves gaps that cannot be filled. You struggle to remember the name of a sibling sold away, the sound of a friend's laughter, the warmth of a bed that was not made of straw and fear. Sometimes remembering hurts worse than forgetting. The elders whisper about another life, a life before all this, a world where people walked free, where work was shared and rest was a right, not a reward. You try to imagine that world, the taste of fruit picked from your own tree, the song of crickets at dusk without fear, the feeling of being surrounded by your people, your history, your hope. You want to believe in it, but belief is hard to keep alive when every day is a fresh wound. Still, the urge to remember is strong. You tell stories to yourself and to others, shaping the past so that it can survive in the present. You teach the children words in a language they have never heard, songs that rise up in the darkness like small rebellions. You whisper prayers in the old tongue, prayers for deliverance, for reunion, for simple mercy. The world may punish hope, but it cannot kill it. Not completely. Sometimes you allow yourself to wonder what your life might have been. Would you have become a father, a mother, a farmer, a singer, a storyteller? Would you have built a house with your own hands, grown old in the company of those you love? You imagine a life of choices, not commands, a life where your work means something, where your laughter is not a risk, where your sleep is not haunted by hunger and pain. But most nights, you push these thoughts away. Dreams are precious, but they are also dangerous. Hope can keep you alive, but too much of it can make you reckless, can break your heart one too many times. You learn to ration your dreams, to tuck them away like a crumb of bread, to take small bites when the world grows too heavy to bear. In the end, dreams and memories are all you have that belong to you. They are the secret, stubborn parts of yourself that no overseer can reach, no client can mock, no master can take away. They are your shield against the worst of the world, You're proof that you are more than what you have been made to suffer. You close your eyes night after night and drift into that thin place between what is and what might be. There, for a moment, you are free. There, for a moment, you remember who you are. Morning returns with all the grace of a stone falling into water. You wake, if you ever really slept, and feel the same ache behind your eyes, the same stiffness in your hands, the same heaviness wrapped around your bones. There is no sense of renewal. There is no fresh start. Each day is another turn in the same circle, and the future is just another word for repetition. You lie on your mat, staring at the patch of roof where the planks do not meet, letting the first light of dawn filter through. The world outside your shelter is unchanged. The same street, the same dust, the same faces waiting for you to kneel and polish and serve. It is a world designed to run without you, yet it will not let you go. You rise not because you want to, not because hope has returned, but because inertia carries you forward. Habit is stronger than hunger, stronger than despair. If you let yourself think of the future, it is not a promise, but a threat. You know how easily things can grow worse. A careless word, a split-second mistake, a sickness that does not heal, a client who decides he does not like your face. Every day is balanced on the knife edge of someone else's mood. You have seen friends disappear, families torn apart, futures erased with a stroke of a pen or a gesture from the porch. To hope for something brighter is to invite disappointment. To expect change is to invite punishment. And yet, you cannot keep yourself from thinking about tomorrow. It is a form of stubbornness, maybe, or foolishness, or the last spark of humanity that refuses to be snuffed out. You measure your life in small increments. Another day survived, another meal swallowed, another night endured. You tell yourself that as long as you can keep going, there is still a chance, however slight, that something might be different. But as you count the days, you realize they are all the same. The work, the hunger, the fear, the humiliation. The line of shoes never grows shorter, the clients never kinder, the master never less demanding. For some, the future is simply not dying. To reach the next morning, to keep the overseer's whip at bay, to avoid illness and injury, to stay invisible enough not to draw attention and useful enough not to be discarded. Ambition is a dangerous luxury. Even hope can be risky if it shows in your eyes or your posture. You learn to fold your dreams small, to hide them deep, to tell yourself that survival is enough. You watch the younger ones sometimes, the way their eyes still light up with questions, the way they talk of running away or fighting back or being free. You want to tell them the truth, that the world is not built for their dreams, that the walls are taller and thicker than they know. But you cannot bring yourself to steal their hope. You envy it, even as you mourn what it will cost them. The future is never yours alone. It is shared with everyone in the quarters, every mother rocking a child, every father with shoulders bowed, every friend who whispers in the dark. You see the way they look to you, sometimes, for guidance or reassurance, as if you hold a secret path out of this place. You shake your head. You do not. You are not wise, not brave, not chosen for anything but endurance. At night, you sometimes lie awake and wonder how long this circle will last. You count the days and realize you have lost track. Has it been 5 years, 10, 20? The calendar means nothing here. The seasons blur, the years fold in on themselves. The future is just the past, played out again and again, like a story told by someone who has forgotten how it ends. And yet, even in the grayness, there are flickers, the murmur of a song, the taste of a stolen peach, the memory of laughter, a story whispered in the dark, a touch of kindness from a stranger, a child's voice asking a forbidden question. These are not beacons, they are embers glowing faintly against the endless night. They do not promise escape or deliverance, but they remind you that something human remains, even in the mud and hunger and pain. Sleep is no deliverance. The world of dreams, once a refuge, grows dimmer as the years pass. You wake more often with dread than hope, more often with memories of loss than glimpses of freedom. Still, you close your eyes each night and try to remember a different world, a world where the future meant more than another day survived. The circle will not be broken for you. You know this, and you do not pretend otherwise. Perhaps someday it will be broken for someone else. Perhaps the world will tilt and the light will finally reach the places it has never touched. Perhaps, but not for you. You rise in the morning and do what you have always done. You endure. You keep moving through the gray, through the filth, through the endless ordinary cruelty of each day. If there is dignity, it is in that, persisting in the face of a future that offers nothing but more of the same, refusing to let your spirit be erased by repetition and despair. And so the day begins again. You take your tools, your silence, your hunger, and step out into a world that has never wanted you to have a future at all. You walk forward, not because you believe in what comes next, but because forward is the only direction left.